Hey guys, this is Scalen from Fast Fire News. This is a reshoot for my Man of Steel series Risen Threat review. I figured I'd reshoot it because my last review was a little more jumbled than I cared for, and also I wanted to change the orientation of the camera so that the video was, more full instead of the thin, narrow way I filmed it in. Um, so Yeah, with that all said, this is my web video series for my reviews, our new video series. We're gonna do this for Man of Steel and Icedown, and maybe some others at some other point. But yeah, you'll be able to see the score on the Super Now's website in our FFN review section. You'll be able to see our score and our list of pros and cons. But our opinion will be here on the video. So that said, and out of the way, let's begin. Um, Man of Steel has had something of a rocky season so far. Um, the episodes have been good. Some of them have been great. It has been a good show. I'm not denying that. Um, but I haven't really felt so far that it's reached its full potential. That the full potential it has, and well, heading into its second half, I wasn't really sure what to expect because of that. Because there's been some mishaps so far, and some things I felt the writers needed to address. And correct, and I wasn't sure whether or not they would do that in the second half. So it was kind of a waiting game to see what would happen. Um, Man of Steel's midseason premiere was by far the strongest episode of the series so far. Um, it not only seemed to address all of the show's issues, but it also just was a really exciting episode of the show. Now, first off, heading into the storyline of the episode, we had the. Let me remember from the beginning. Oh yes. Um, if I'm correct, the episode began with Gordon and the police finding the security footage of the LexCorp men basically getting in the car and driving off and everything. They found the security footage basically of the titanium theft. So they wind up finding the security footage, which shows a LexCorp file sitting in the truck. And the file apparently winds up being revealed to obviously be stating that it's from LexCorp on there. And so this is they basically take this as evidence that Lex Luthor was involved in this, and he is sent a letter to that he needs to go to court. So yeah, so that's how it began, and then we get Lex Luthor basically going to court, getting prepared for this and everything. So before we head any further, let me say my opinion on all this. Um, the file thing, I'm not gonna say the file thing maybe couldn't have been. They couldn't have maybe written in a little bit better of an better evidence. They maybe couldn't have written. They maybe could have written something a little bit better than the file thing in here as evidence against Lex Luthor. The writers could have maybe found a better way to show that Lex Luthor was involved in this, because the file thing was just a little bit sketchy. I'm not going to deny that. It would have to be sitting in the truck where the camera would be able to see it, and also you don't really just see papers lying around in a truck, really. At least not that I've ever really heard of. That well, I mean, you just don't really see that all that often where the camera would see it, and also it just seems a little coincidental. It just seemed like it lined up a little too easily. But um, this wasn't really a big issue. I mean, the rest of the episode did enough that I felt like I was able to overlook this detail. This wasn't really a huge thing because stuff like that can happen. But so yeah, there was that, and that it's not really a major issue. I wouldn't really count it against the episode itself because it wasn't really a big thing to me. Um, but lost my train of thought here. Um, the courtroom scenes, I felt, were done really well. Not Lex Luthor was really great in these scenes. For one, he had an air of intimidation to him, like you knew he was planning something, and like he was dangerous. You could tell he was dangerous, but also he managed to blend that with a really good sense of humor that made his character really funny and just a real joy to watch. So I felt like not only the actor did a really great job here, but this scene was really written really well. Um, the courtroom scene I felt was done very realistically. The 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 whole thing was just done really well by the actors, and the writers just wrote it out really well. But um, I have to say I was almost really disappointed when I thought that all the evidence Lex Luthor had against. Well, basically, before I say that, what happens in this is that Lex Luthor winds up they wind up basically telling Lex Luthor unless he has some evidence to support his argument that he has nothing, that he's not involved in this, that he's going to go to prison. So he winds up asking for basically 24 hours to prove that he's innocent. And at that point, guys, I was really interested in this plot, this storyline. There was a genuine sense of suspense. I really didn't know what was going to happen or how Lex Luthor was going to prove that he was innocent. So that made this really fun to watch. But the one actual flaw that this episode did have was that after Lex Luthor leaves, there's a really quick transition between him leaving to the next day of him coming back. We get a really brief talk between Clark and Jimmy, and then we're back to Lex Luthor coming right back to the court. So that I felt needed more space between the two scenes, because it was just felt like it went a little too fast, and I would have liked for it to felt more like he really was spending some time dealing with this, or basically just that there was some time in between, instead of like it feeling like it was a couple seconds later. So that was the one actual flaw I did find with this episode that I felt could have been done just a bit better. I felt could have been improved overall. But back onto the courtroom thing. When Lex comes back, his evidence. The evidence he wants to bring is basically his file box, and he explains that the file's missing from it, and tries to imply that that basically someone else stole his file, and because it was a delivery file talking about him getting a delivery, and basically somebody else was going to steal the delivery. They took the file and was going to basically steal his titanium delivery. I almost was really disappointed, getting back onto what I was going to say earlier. I was really almost disappointed when I thought Lex Luthor was going to be when I thought that's all he had, because when the judge wanted to tell him that's not really much to support his argument here, and I almost thought that that's really all he had. So I was quite disappointed, because I wanted Lex Luthor to be this villain that like has a plan for everything and knows how to deal with everything in case things go south or something. And I was really almost disappointed, because I thought that's all he had. But lo and behold, we wind up getting that. What winds up happening is that the LexCorp men who are supposedly responsible come in and basically confess, and Lex winds up being proved innocent. That whole scene was also really good, because I was totally rooting for Lex Luthor when that happened, when they came in. In fact, they did a so good job at that scene of being convincing enough that I almost didn't even know if Lex Luthor was actually involved in that. I was thinking maybe somebody had stolen his titanium delivery at first, because it just was so convincing in that scene. But once I got an idea that basically when I knew what he was doing, when it clicked that I knew what he was doing, that was really cool, because he did plan for it. And basically it was also really cool that his file missing from his box that he brought in was also basically just to basically add to that. to distract the judge, basically also add to his argument. So it didn't just look suspicious that these guys come in the next day and confess. So that was just really cool, and I felt Lex handled that like a pro. That made him. I feel like this was a good episode for developing Lex Luthor as a villain as a whole.